Alright, in today's video I'm going to talk about weighted calisthenics and how to maximize muscle gains whilst training your weighted calisthenics. So let's dive right into today's video. And before going over the 5 main things you have to do to maximize muscle mass gains with weighted calisthenics, is that I'm going to tell you guys right now that if your main goal is to build a lot of muscle mass, weighted calisthenics probably is not going to be the best option for you. So if your main goal isn't to get better at weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, and weighted calisthenics in general, you're probably better off doing something like bodybuilding, which is a form of resistance training that is much more suited to maximize muscle hypertrophy, aka gain as much muscle mass as possible. But with that being said, let's actually see how we can maximize muscle hypertrophy and muscle gains whilst training weighted calisthenics. So let's start off with the first point, which is you have to work in the hypertrophy rep range. I have done multiple videos on rep ranges in the past, and if you guys actually watched them, which you probably should have, you guys will know that you can train for strength, hypertrophy or endurance, and the hypertrophy rep range is the best one to maximize muscle hypertrophy, obviously, which obviously means that you're going to build the most amount of muscle mass. And this is going to include everything from 5 all the way up to 15 reps, which is going to maximize muscle tension and muscle damage, which are 2 of the 3 main components of hypertrophy training. Now, it could be useful to also implement some strength training, aka about 1 to 5 reps within your training. Mainly, I feel like for enjoyment purposes, because obviously it is fun to really lift heavy, but also it can also be useful to break through plateaus whilst working in hypertrophy rep ranges. But with that being said, if your main focus is to really maximize muscle mass, you will have to do the bulk of your sets in the hypertrophy rep range, aka about 5 to 15 reps. And then the second point is to keep your reps slow and controlled. Now, this might be kind of unexpected, and it pretty much shows a big difference between strength training and hypertrophy training, because when you're training for strength, pretty much want to keep the reps as fast as possible, pulling with maximum intent to maximize your strength gains. Now, with hypertrophy training, this actually is not what you want to do, because when you're training for hypertrophy, you really want to keep the reps slow and controlled to really focus on mind-muscle connection, to maximize the muscle tension and muscle damage, which once again are the 2 main components of hypertrophy training. So when you're doing strength, the only thing you really need to think about is just complete the rep. But when you're doing a weighted pull-up, for example, and training for hypertrophy, you really have to think about maximizing your back engagement, which you can only do if you actually keep the reps slow and controlled. And if your goal is to maximize muscle hypertrophy, keep the reps slow and controlled and focus on mind-muscle connection. And then the third point is to progressively overload your training. Now, this pretty much goes for whether you're training for strength, hypertrophy, or pretty much any type of training. You have to get better progressively at what it is that you're doing. So just working in the right rep ranges and keeping the tempo slow and controlled isn't enough. You actually have to make a conscious effort of improving the weights that you're lifting as the months progress. And the rate of progress is going to be vastly different depending on your training level, but just try to make sure that as the weeks progress, you are steadily increasing the reps you're doing and the weights you're lifting in order to progressively overload your training and to build more muscle mass. And then the fourth thing is to be in a caloric surplus. Now, obviously, what we've talked about in this video is pretty much all related to your training, but obviously diet is also very important if you want to build muscle mass. And what does it mean to be in a caloric surplus? It pretty much means that you have to eat more calories than you are expending throughout the day to give your body the building blocks required to build further muscle mass. And here we probably have to talk about how big of a surplus that you have to be in. Now, because you're training with weighted calisthenics, it's kind of not as simple as giving you guys a normal number, because I would say, right, a big surplus, let's take about 300 to 400 calories. What this is going to do is going to allow you to probably build a lot more muscle mass. However, the increase of weight is going to be faster than when you would have a smaller surplus. And when you're doing weighted calisthenics, gaining a lot of weight is not going to be very good, because it will have a negative impact on your training. But when you would have a small caloric surplus, you won't have a negative impact on your training. However, the rate of weight gain, aka muscle gain, aka the rate of weight gain, is going to be smaller, therefore giving you less potential to actually build muscle mass. So here you probably have to make a decision what you want to do. Do you want to be in a small caloric surplus, aka about 100 to 200 calories, which is going to have the least negative effect on your training, but is going to probably make you build less muscle mass, or be in a bigger surplus, allow you to build more muscle mass, but it's going to have a negative impact on your training? You do whatever you want. I personally would probably prefer being in a smaller surplus, which is going to pretty much keep your training as good as it can be. And this is, by the way, why weighted calisthenics is not very ideal to build a lot of muscle mass, because simply you have to pretty much always keep, track of your weight. And once again, if you're doing bodybuilding like a bench press, I mean, your body weight or rapid increase in your body weight is not going to impact your bench press negatively. If anything, it's probably going to have a positive impact on your bench press. But with calisthenics, you're obviously working with your body weight to an extent. Therefore, it's not ideal if your main goal is to build a lot of muscle mass. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about is recovery, sleep, hydration, and pretty much all the other factors that are very important to build a lot of muscle mass. Now, these are important whether you're training for strength or hypertrophy or pretty much anything, but I felt like I really had to mention this in today's video. So if it comes to sleep, hit about 7 to 8 hours a day. If it comes to your stress, try to keep it as minimal as possible. If it comes to hydration, obviously stay hydrated. And if it comes to your alcohol or your drug consumption, try to keep it to a minimal, I feel like. But then again, I mean, you're not a robot, so it's obviously not like a weird thing if you drink sometimes. But with that being said, I mean, I probably can make a whole video on alcohol and drugs and training, but the bottom line is pretty much like, you can drink, go out, do whatever you want to do, but you can't be in a position where you're complaining about a lack of progress if you're going out and drinking on a consistent basis. So with that being said, just keep it to a minimal. And that is pretty much going to be the full video for today. Hope you guys found it informative or useful. For now, thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram. If you guys have any more video ideas, questions, or advice, leave it down below in the comment section. I'll see you guys next video. As always, Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. 3 videos a week. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Laters.